Hello, Ciaran. Is that right? Is my Irish?
You got it pretty good, Ciaran.
Yes.
Yeah. God, it looks a lot sunnier there than here. The sun is coming and going every couple of seconds.
Where are you? Are you in Ireland?
Yeah, in Dublin.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. There's no sun in Ireland, right?
Well, sometimes for a couple of minutes. They say you get the four seasons in one day in Ireland, so.
But then that's just like Peru as well. And
Oh,
I think
really?
it's just about as green as Ireland, you might say. I'll give you a little spin there.
Oh, wow. God, it's picturesque, isn't it?
Yeah, this is where I'm at. Which it's right now. It's the just coming out of the wet season. So there's also a dog there as well. So that if you hear a dog, that's the dog. Yeah, it's just coming out of wet season, or so that's been 6 months of rain,
Okay.
and that means so the whole area is really green. But give it another 6 months now, like the climate's changing, so the sun's going to be out every day. There's not going to be any more rain, and it just turns kind of a browny kind of desert. It's like more deserty.
Hmm.
So yeah, hence the dry season. So
I can imagine. And you moved house there just at the weekend. How did that go?
yeah, so it's all kind of part of like my transitioning or pivoting or whatever you want to call it, from pre-pandemic, which was a offline school, a brick, what they say, a brick school,
Brick and
whatever.
mortar, yeah.
Brick and mortar, that's the one.
Yeah.
Brick and mortar school. That's not working in Peru very well right now, and everyone's had this crash course on digital, um, basically taking classes online. So have a student base, and with that, I decided, well, I can continue doing this, and I'm going to try doing this, which is the more digital nomady lifestyle. Which so far so good, right? I mean, it's been traumatic. It's been really tough, really challenging. Uh, I could have been comfortable. I could have stayed comfortable where I was and just paid the rent, but I decided to put all my stuff onto a truck and come out here. So it's kind of a new life, a little bit of a new lifestyle, trying it out, and I do think there's a lot of potential.
I'm really excited to speak to you because from what I've read about you, you're a very innovative guy and you have a very unique journey as an English language teacher. And I believe nearly 7 years ago, you set up your own English school in Cusco in Peru, Inglés Superior. And I'm really excited to hear about that. So maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself as an introduction.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I love the side here. You've got my name on it. So I love. Although you've clearly made an effort with your background. So thank you for having me firstly, and I'm equally excited to share my story. And want to thank you again for organising this and having taken the time. So cutting a long story short, I'm in Peru. I'm in the Cusco region. It's about 3,400 meters above sea level. How did I arrive here? Well, I wasn't born here. I'm not from here. I was born in London, in a place by Watford, if some football fans might know. Watford's basically famous for that these days, and that's about it. But yeah, pretty standard North London kind of upbringing. Mum's from France, dad's from England, but he's a little bit Irish. He's got his Irish passport now with everything that's going on out there, and my grandmother's Lebanese. So my
Wow.
grandfather, my grandfather, who's English Irish, he went out to India, back, long time ago, to do his like military service. So he was a bit of a traveler kind of guy, it seems like he was happy to go out with the military, the British military, came back, didn't like the UK or England, and then went to Palestine and met my grandmother while working out there. So, there's a bit of, obviously in my family, this kind of thing for mixing and matching, because again, my mum's French. So from a young age, I was traveling to France, learning another language. And also she was an air hostess for British Airways. So with that added extra bonus, we traveled the world, like as a family, like once a year we'd had a free trip. I don't know if they do that anymore, but if you're an air hostess, you usually get these kind of benefits, which are
Yeah.
pretty awesome, right? Especially if you're a pilot, you get a few more, I think, as well. But always wanted to be a pilot, and didn't happen. They were like, you need physics and maths. I was like, either like I'm terrible at those. But the irony is, I wasn't very good at English either. I'm dyslexic, so to become an English teacher was just like not supposed to happen either. but we'll probably,
love a
I mean,
challenge.
it was a chat. It's all been a challenge, and that's like not my philosophy. I think a big part of me is not running away from challenge, is going into challenge, facing it forwards, and seeing how you come out on the other side. Usually, you know, you come out better, stronger, wiser, more experienced. So I had this, I think, a travel bug that was like in dormant within me for a long time, but I did well enough to pass my GCSEs and then my A levels, and I got accepted to the University of Manchester. I took a course which was French and business management. You know, I had a year in France, which again kind of spurred the travel bug. Did the Erasmus program, great program, definitely recommend it. Came back to Manchester, rainy Manchester, and I was like, oh, what's this? This is it. And I didn't do very well. I wasn't very motivated, and I was kind of struggling. My other friends had moved on, and so I was in a kind of an uncomfortable living situation with people I wasn't really that trustworthy with. Very difficult year, plus the exams and all that. Struggled through, got through it, got a 2-2 on like a 59.6 average. So I was gutted. I was like, oh, what can I do? I can't get a job. It was 2011. So like after the, you know, terrible economic crisis, there's no jobs. It was very tight. It's very competitive. So nobody's even going to consider you. At least that's what you think anyway. That's the training that I had at that time, was that this is what I was supposed to get. Otherwise I wasn't ever going to be successful, basically. So yeah, a lot of pressure there, and I didn't know what to do, but I still had one lucky thing, and that was my mum, right? My mum was there, and she had these benefits, and I was available. They were available to me until I was 24 years old. And I had a cousin, and he's out there right now in Thailand. He's still there, and he'd gone out and taken the TEFL.
Okay.
He'd taken this TEFL. He'd got this TEFL thing, and he'd gone out and he was teaching English out in Thailand, and he's doing this thing, and everyone's talking about it. So okay, I asked my friends, you know, who else wants to come with me? Nobody could come with me, you know, time, money, you know. So I said, okay, I'm just going to take this trip on my own. I'm going to go and see my cousin, and I'm going to do the Southeast Asia tour thing, right?
Cool.
Ended up doing that. Totally changed my life, because it was like, okay, now I'm completely more aware. It was one step from Watford. You left your little village of Watford. It seems like a village. You think it's so big at that time with all the, you know, social things going on when you're a teenager going through that time. And then I went to Manchester, so it's okay, now it's like meeting different influences from around the world. So a little bit of travel in that sense, you know, to move to another city. And then it was to like Southeast Asia on your own. And when you start to travel on your own, you're very much liberated, and I think it challenges your ego a lot. So you begin to understand and see who you are and ask questions about yourself. And that gave me a lot of confidence, self-confidence, because I kind of realized I had a natural leadership skill with that. I kind of had this path, or I had this vision of, for example, having a great day and doing all these tours, and I would plan it in the morning and be like, and not only would I plan it, I would have asked people the night before what their recommendations were. So I was already set in stone, and I kind of figured it out, right? Because you get recommendations from people that you don't really like. So you're like, well, I don't want to do that. But you get like, oh, this person's really cool, it's really safe, and we got the same kind of vibe. And he's like recommending that. So, or shoot, whatever. And so you go and do that. And that's what I learned. It was all about people, right? People was the way to get to the right information, to find new things. And people would kind of tag on and would say, this is what I'm doing. You can come with me, and you're welcome to come. Some people would be like, great, let's do it. They come back and have to say, that was a great day, Ben. Or some people are like, no, I want to do my thing. So okay, go and do that. So you start to develop your people skills by traveling, survival skills, planning skills, figuring out another language, starting to learn another language, putting yourself into that culture, realizing how to actually adapt to different cultures. So the whole travel in Southeast Asia, you know, just spurs so much more learning, because again, you're being challenged every day. It's problem solving skills and whatnot. So I did all that, went to Australia, had all that kind of thing, came back to Europe, was like, what to do now? Okay. So I had that. You get a little bit tired, obviously. You get to go back home, thankfully. And then you go, what's next? So I was just doing odd jobs, construction, gardening, whatever it was. But I had one more chance. I had one more chance before I was 24 to get on that free flight anywhere in the world, right? So, you know, you're like, okay, you got to do it, right? You got to do it. So, but then by that point, I'd like spent all my money. I didn't have quite as much money as I had the first time from saving. So one of my friends still a very good friend of mine, Emily, she said to me, Ben, why don't you take the CELTA? Why don't you teach English so that you've got a kind of an income? And I'd been told by my cousin, he took the TEFL, right? And he said, no, the CELTA's the gold standard. You get paid more if you take the CELTA. So, okay, cool. Let's take the CELTA. So me and my friend, we signed up together, got a discount, I think, for 2 for 1. So you can always bargain on the price with these CELTAs. Obviously, this is pre-pandemic, and I did it at a place on Bond Street, a place called Saxon Court, which is cool because I get to go into London every day in the centre and put on some nice clothes and deep dive into this CELTA course. And it's very intense. It's 4 weeks of read books. I mean, it's like a university. I think I said there was like 3 or 4 semesters of a university in like 1 month. Mm-hmm. So yeah, a lot of reference material, and it was honestly, it's such a great course. It really is recommended. That and that's the point. It's like if you want to stand yourself out as a teacher, you're either an amateur or you're a professional. And a professional is the person who's prepared. They're prepared for the job. So that CELTA is an amazing training. And the best thing about it is I haven't even said the best thing, because you got loads of in-class teaching time. You got to have peer feedback. Some people didn't pass it. So I was like, there were like 18 in our course, like 8 people like dropped out, didn't pass it, weren't taking it seriously. You've only got 1 chance of the teaching stuff, like the teaching material. So it's tough. It's really intense. You've got to go in it. And I had that. I had full intention. I was there committed. But you could see other people weren't committed. Like I remember this girl, she was on her iPad playing a game, going, I'm just going to go to Thailand, just like ride elephants and do these things. It's like, no. Like you got to take this seriously, right? And so I don't think she passed it. So you don't get your money back. Mm-hmm. So it definitely gives a lot of credibility. And the best thing for me is that at the end of the day, on my CV, on my curriculum vitae, it's a success. Like it's obviously amazing, but I can put University of Cambridge on it. And part of the reason I went to the University of Manchester is like, I was like, Manchester, everybody knows Manchester. Maybe not for the university, maybe more for Manchester United, but it doesn't matter. It's famous. It's like people recognize it. Mm-hmm. And that's what's important. And the same thing in Cambridge. I can be like, I have credentials from the University of Cambridge. Surely that sets me immediately apart from the 97%. I'm part of that 3%. Now, I'm not trying to be snobby here. I'm just saying it's marketing. It's what people. People are rationalizing it like this. Oh, that's a university 400 years old. Great. Is the CELTA itself perfect? No, I've actually taken another TEFL course myself. So I invested in taking a full-time TEFL course. So I've taken the CELTA and a TEFL, and that gave me a kind of more global kind of way, because the TEFL was more practical. It was like a more practical thing. Like, here are tips to teach in class, and the CELTA came across as much more theoretical. Theoretical was much more theory. Read the books, get the quotation, put it down on paper, show that you're a kind of an academic kind of person. And you can deal with those environments. But the TEFL was like, no, this is how you teach. Do 50-50 questions, CCQs, eliciting, PPPs, lesson planning. So on the whole, I was able to get 2 experiences, and I'll tell you why in a moment when I get to it. So got my CELTA, passed it. My friend didn't pass it. She like flopped under the pressure. So she stayed at England. I was like, right, I took my finger, I kind of like spun it around like a kind of pin the tail on the donkey sort of thing. Because coming from, lucky British Airways, fly everywhere, right? So fortunate to have those opportunities. As people coming from the UK, you don't realize like how much opportunity we have to actually go out and do what we want in the world, compared to Peruvians, for example, here. Couldn't just do that. I mean, even the local airline would only take you to certain, like LATAM, basically Latin America. It wouldn't fly anywhere else. So those benefits are limited too. Anyway, I got this opportunity. I said, okay, South America, Buenos Aires. Didn't do any due diligence. Got on a plane, just flew over there. And then I realized, like, should have done my due diligence, because they have a thing with their currency, which is slightly fixed. It's kind of fixed by the government. So I wasn't told before I went there to like basically bring cash, because cash is like so much more valuable than the machines, because there's basically the 2 currencies. They're like the real currency, the real valuation based on free economics, and then the other one, which is based on what the government say. So it was called like the blue dollar and the green dollar or something like that. But I'm not sure if you've been to Argentina. It's a great place, but it's dilapidated, and it was a very rich place 100 years ago. But you can see it's just not being renovated. It came across as a bit too close to home
Really?
for me. Yeah, because I came to South America and I flew so far, and yet I was like, oh, this is kind of the same. I guess it's the Americas, right? The Americas is like there's a lack of difference of culture compared to Asia, right? When you go to Asia, it's like, oh, okay, this is another world, right? Here you're like, okay, this is familiar. Speaking Spanish, obviously, there's churches, but it was also too just. I wanted something a bit more authentic, maybe the nature. I wanted more something like this, and this is what Peru has to offer, right? Well, I mean, so yeah, it's an intense city. It's very big, very a lot of pollution, very small, not a lot of parks, not a lot of green space. But I managed to stick around for 3 months.
And did you teach English there?
Yeah, so I literally got on a plane and arrived, and then was like, right, now I got to find the job. So this is the way of like to get a job. The best thing to do is just literally be there in front and be like, turn up. So the most powerful like way of like selling yourself is just to show up, right, literally in the building and be like, hey, I'm here to teach. But I did have some sort of contacts. Like I did use early days of Facebook to get like a networking of people who'd already worked with companies. Yeah, so they advised me to this kind of it was a lady in an office who was working on a kind of professional basis, like B2B, business to business sort of services. So again, just like went there, was an office, a building office, 20 stories high, click on an elevator, got taken up to like the 14th floor, just a kind of pretty standard sort of office setup. But except for you're in Buenos Aires, and like everywhere you've got these little pictures of naked women, and it's just corruption, and it's dirty, and it's dangerous, and it's also it's got culture, and it's an amazing place, but it's also, like I said, dilapidated and a little bit 70s. They went through some crazy architectural processes in the 70s that my landlord was love to talk about. And you went up to this office block, and she said, so you've got the Celta. She said, I've heard that's challenging. So the Celta, oof, tough that stuff. Great. When can you start?
Brilliant. Wow.
What kind of advice can you give me? Are you willing to work? I want all the hours you can give me everything, that kind of attitude. I asked questions like, how are you doing it? What's your system, your processes? And I remember one piece of advice she always gave to me, and I stuck with this, is like, if ever in doubt, talk about yourself. And I really like that. I've used that a few times in my career, like, oh no, I don't know what I'm going to say, or I haven't planned or something, and or I'm covering a class. Sometimes your students are actually very interested in you as a person. So you can be like, look, today I'm just going to actually tell you about the UK. Like, a lot of people ask me, like, what's the difference? So I'm going to talk to you about it. And then you talk about currency, and then you talk about how the school system works, and then you talk about your family. And then you see them just shooting questions at you. But it didn't really work out. It was very expensive. And like I said, I was losing a lot of money because I had money in the UK and I was pulling it out, and I was getting like 400 pesos, when in reality it was worth like 700 pesos. So I was getting like 50% of my money lost every time I took money out from. So I was like, okay, I got to go. Like, and also my visa was running out. So boom, like, I'm going to go somewhere. Like, I had a choice. I remember I was either going to go to Patagonia or to Cusco, but I made the decision for Cusco because I thought, well, more tourists, and it's probably going to be English work. Tourists equals English work. So I picked up my backpack and just like, overland, went to Iguazu Falls, beautiful falls, the biggest falls in the world, I think, right? Or like the densest, like 3 times bigger than Niagara Falls. Wow. Between Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina. A beautiful place. Kept going up, met some Argentinians. We did Salta, which is like deserty North Argentina. Went to Potosi in Bolivia, did the mines. Went to La Paz, partied in La Paz, I suppose you could say. Did the Death Road. Finally get to Puno and the Lake Titicaca, and did the island out there, boat trips, and got to Cusco. And Cusco is just a magical place. It's a really, really magical place you get to, and you're like, wow, this is really awesome. It's so cosmopolitan, lots of tourists, lots of buzz. lots of people, and lots of history. Now it's not that European history, right? It's not that. Oh, I mean, there are churches and stuff, but there's also the Inca. Okay, so now the people are very different. Like, people now look different, more Indian, right? They're kind of Andean Indian, whereas Buenos Aires is European, it's German, French, Italian, Spanish kind of combination. So yeah, really interesting, beautiful place. Definitely recommend it. Top spot. I literally turned up with the guys, put on my best clothes, walked into a school there, an American school, which is a professionally well organized school of about 1,500 students every month. So a massive school. We were 20 teachers, and walked in there, said, "Hey, I'm looking for a job, English teacher." And he said, "What have you got?" I said, "The TEFL." He said, "Oh, that's challenging, isn't it?" And I said, "Yes, that was challenging. Already got the credibility there, already got the attitude." He said, "Well, let's set up. Can you set up a model class?" So he said, "Tomorrow, come back and you'll do one of my classes." So set to work that night, got my plan ready, kind of was remembering. I had already forgotten a lot from like CELTA from 3 months back, where everything that had happened. And the way that I was teaching in Buenos Aires, I don't know if I probably didn't say, but yeah, it was, I would just basically go to offices around Buenos Aires and go and meet a manager and just start talking to him. Usually they just wanted to do conversation stuff.
Business English stuff, was it?
Sorry?
Business English.
Yeah, it was business English. It was working at L'Oreal, Santander, these banks. So I guess it was, you have to look kind of professional. I'm quite good at doing that, thanks to my grammar school education, putting on a tie, getting dressed up basically. But I found that they were very happy to do conversation. They just wanted to talk about their lives, and it was also very interesting for me because it was like, okay, you want to talk to me about Argentinian economy and what's going on with my money? Sure, I'll listen to that. And then what I would do is take notes. So I would always take notes of the errors they make. So you're talking about any sort of grammar points, vocab issues, pronunciation, and also so I'm there always. I'm listening, but I'm always doing something. So I call it active listening. If you look at lawyers, for example, the best lawyers who in the most important cases, if you look at them there, well, they're not just listening like that, like casually. They're there taking notes on everything. And this is the point of like you showing that you're like your student is paying you, right? So to do something. So that is by showing you that I'm doing something. So I also can focus. I can also use that. It's basically at the end of the 45-minute session, for example, I have a worksheet for them saying, hey, these are all your mistakes. Now can you self-correct? Right. So then they're going, okay, Ben's legit, he's working hard. I can see he's working hard. He's taking notes and he's making me do the work as well. He's drawing attention to my mistakes because I'm not like, hey, this is your mistake and this is how you correct it. I'm like, hey, here's an exercise. So I get another 10 minutes for them to work on it. And then they know what they need to work on too. Maybe I need to teach at that point. Maybe at that point they're like, okay, I don't know now. What's the difference between the past and the present? So boom, now I teach based on what their needs are. So that was always.
I think this would be a good point to bring in, since we're speaking about methodology. I saw on your website you have the BEST method, the British English Support Tools. So could you tell me a little bit about that?
I do, yeah. I think this is the point. This is the support and the tools are what the student needs to succeed. As a teacher, we are also an instructor, we're a guide, we're a coach. We're not there we can't make them do the work, they have to do it. You can't get the horse to drink the water, and a donkey is not a horse. I select my students because of their willingness to actually want to learn and have a desire. It doesn't work very well if the student isn't really willing and doesn't really care and isn't in the right place themselves. All I can do is give them the tools, give them the support. And it was going to be Ben English support and tools, but I'm going to be honest, it's like a marketing thing, right? There's also the marketing thing with British English is a little bit more sellable than American English. So I found, it's more recognized around the world as being a little bit more with it's 300 years of history doing marketing for you, and just the image that people have, we're quite well, you know, we are well respected. Like people think of the English as, especially in Peru, like there's no real qualms against the English. They talk about the Chileans, it's a different question. The thing is, it's a bit funny because the British are kind of friends with the Chileans, so you know, it's a little bit complicated, but generally people admire, I've got a sense of admiration for British English. There's, oh, that's better, basically. Oh yes, you want British English ideally, sort of thing, you know. Americans a little bit more, you know, gringo, sort of less higher quality of sophistication, I suppose. So I had that, so that's why I was going to put British English support on tools, or just my name, basically, because I believe that there is a certain amount of methodology. I would say things are changing now. Things were about schools in the past. I believe things are more leaning towards teachers now. You don't need to have a schools to get to in front of the students anymore. You can just cut the schools out and go straight to the internet, get your own students, and become the methodology yourself.
Exactly. So Ben, could you tell us a little bit about how COVID has affected you? You know, since the pandemic started, it's basically exactly a year here. So what changes have you gone through?
Yeah, so kind of leading on from the story, like of my past, then I got to Cusco and I found an opportunity to have British English. Okay, there was an American English school doing very well, highly successful, but it didn't work out. I worked for them for a long time, a year and a half. I learned the ways of I observed, I took notes, and I developed, I invested time in myself. And then I felt, you know what, I think I'm ready to do this by myself. I mean, you can talk to my old employees. Basically, we had a disagreement and we were like, look, I wanted to move things. I wanted to innovate. I wanted to have more control. They were like, no, Ben, you're too passionate. You're too willing. No, you've got to do the way things are. And that created conflict. And then there was a point where I just said, like, that was it, right? So we just left, cut kind of ties. And I said, like, I've got nothing now. I haven't got a job, got nothing. I can at least give it a go. So I started an English school. I gave it a name, Inglés Superior. What do? We do English. How do we do it? We do it in a superior way. We do it the best way we can. And that's the final level, right? On the CEFR as well, you've got basic, elementary, advanced, and then finally ends with superior. So that was like the objective, right? To get to a superior level. So I went from a marketing position where I was a school and not a private English teacher. It wasn't Ben doing it. It was just an English school. And then put some ads out and people called, and that was it. You know, it went from one student in my house about that month, taught him a whole month for a very decent price, but he liked it, so he stayed on. Then I had 2 sisters who joined, so I had 3 the next month. Then 2 more joined, an intermediate level with the basic level. And then, okay, so I had 2 groups now. That went well. They all liked it. They stayed on. So then I managed to get a few more students, 2 more, 7. And then I found an office in the city, which was like that price. It was the same value of 7 students. Took the jump, made the move from my apartment to an office, like a mezzanine. So I had the office downstairs and the office and the classroom above it. Hired my first teacher and it was just off. It was like a good location. Boom. So we were up to like 25 and then 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 every month, just and reinvesting in the company, keeping what I needed to survive for me, and then reinvesting. Okay, we need a new classroom. Boom, let's get a new classroom. Let's paint it, fix it, get the board, get the chairs, get the thing, make that investment. And then we get to a certain number of students. We have boom, another classroom, add that on top. So we were growing fast. And we eventually got to about 150 students. And in 2020, we were doing the best we'd ever had. We were making more money in January, February, and beginning of March, that first quarter, than we ever had. We were killing it. We were absolutely.
Congratulations! You make it sound so casual. You know, I just saw an office and I went there, and then I did this. So it was a big leap to do that, or what was the motivating? Why did you really want to do this? Was it because you had to do it to make some money, or something you always wanted to do? What were the motivating factors?
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, the why. The most important thing is the why, right? Why go through all of this? Well, there was a big thing. I'd met a Peruvian lady here, and we'd had a daughter. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, my Irish side kicked in. I was like, family. You know, family is the most important thing to me in the world. She's my blood, right? So I guess I got those values from my family. So I carried them through. I was like, right, my commitment is to my daughter and to raising her here. However, the culture, the Irish culture and the Peruvian culture, bit of a clash there, a bit fiery both sides. So me and her mother kind of went separate ways in a way, but I still remain committed to my daughter. So we've remained friends. Kind of a co-parenting situation. It's not ideal, but it's also, you wouldn't, honestly, if you came here, there's a lot of single moms. There's less education, less people just take rasher decisions, and it's just the way things are in Peru. But it's also very expensive to have children here because, everything, you have to pay for everything. But anyway, the point was that it did change something in me. It made me go from backpacker lifestyle, freedom, do whatever you want to, okay, I've got now a responsibility that requires me to work and do it. I think there was a little bit of animosity of my previous employee as well. Like there was a little bit of annoying, like it was like I wanted to compete and be like, and prove myself and be like, look, what a shame you didn't follow on with me, because I had such potential. And I think it was like the results. So seeing those numbers go up and increasing was a massive driving factor. Like basically when I put the ad out, because I didn't have any confidence, I had never done it, I didn't have much confidence in myself. I said, well, I'll try it. What have I got to lose? I didn't have a job. I had bills to pay. And I also had a little bit of money at that point, a little bit of capital. So instead of like taking that capital and running off to Colombia and having a good time, I bought a printer, I bought textbooks, I went for it. I rolled the dice and tried. I swung the bat, if you could say. And then the first time when somebody called me and said, is this Inglés Superior? And you're hearing your name kind of going back, then something's clicking and you're like, oh, this is working. And people would call. The marketing plan went well. Like, again, I have my business studies background. So I was like, I kind of know what I'm doing. And I used Facebook back in the day, 2012. That was the big thing as well, using Facebook, uploading amateur videos, showing people what it was like, boosting those posts back in 2012. And they would go, okay, well, they would see he's English. Then he must know how to speak English because I'm competing against Peruvian teachers, which is like, well, I'm probably a little bit higher quality than they are. Plus I've got the CELTA. But, just nothing against non-native teachers, because I do believe that some of my best teachers have been non-natives. They actually understand the culture better than not the natives. Sometimes they're more serious and more dedicated to the career. Then I've discovered these kind of TEFL travelers. So I totally, the only difference maybe at a later level, intermediate, advanced. But everything was going great. Everything seemed to be fine. Like I was doing really well. I was maturing as a business owner, as a manager. I was doing things a bit more formally, we were innovating, trying to get the best results, conversation classes, working around the curriculum. And then I was like, well, I better take my vacation before summer ends. And I wouldn't mind enjoying, St. Patrick's Day in Lima with my friend, actually. He's from Dublin.
Oh, wow.
I've got a friend in Dublin. He's been out there for a while, for a long time in Lima. And and I got on a plane, and everything in Cusco is a little bit far away. Again, we're in the mountains, high up in the mountains. And I got on the plane, and then I saw, oh, something's happening here. Like, this is weird. People got masks on. Like, what's going on? Like, this surely is far, far away, right? But it's even reaching here, the highlands of Peru. Got to Lima, and there was just more and more paranoia. So I ended up, I was like, right, well, I'm just going to go to this beach town called Paracas, which is like a national reserve, and I'll just hang out there. And that's a whole nother story. I was featured on Lad Bible for my great escape from the pandemic. Oh, wow. Yeah, because I got stuck there basically with my business in Cusco, left behind, and like nobody in charge sort of thing, and I couldn't get back. And I ended up being 2 months at this kind of beach place until I finally got back on the back of a truck. Yeah, I was stuck for 2 months by the beach. So yeah, on my own. So what did I do during that time? Again, I had my laptop and I bought a course on marketing. I started deciding to market myself as an online teacher instead. I started transitioning at that point. I was like, right, well, I took action. I mean, I was I was scared. I was hungry. I was like not sure about what was going to happen, but I had Wi-Fi connection. I had my laptop, and I just put out a plan, bought some pens, started planning out what I needed to do to change this thing. But I was on my own, and that makes it even more difficult, just not having anybody there to bounce ideas about. But I at that point, I invested in a coach as well. Like I had to get somebody, and I'm a firm believer in investing in yourself. Every month I have a budget. These days I set a budget for myself, which is to invest and improve myself in coaches, courses, whatever, really just to keep me on top of my game. But yeah, what happened then? Peru has not been very kind to education. It's again, the government's not exactly the most organized, so everything's just been going online. Schools have not opened since March 2020 at all, and they're not like planning on to doing it. I don't think the vaccine's coming until 2022. So this year, the whole school year is apparently it's digital, online. So yeah, so I took the decision this year to basically sell up, liquidate, and sell the furniture. There's no point in me spending money on that
Very
rent for that
tough.
bill. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was, you know what though, ultimately I had said to myself that it was a 3 to 5 year game when I set up the school. I actually said to myself, like I put myself in the mindset that this was a long-term thing. I said, look, I'm doing this. This is going to take a while. It's going to take 3 to 5 years. So I actually surpassed it by 6 or 7. So the pandemic, and actually, you know what? I started something 6 or 7 years ago, which I probably should have in hindsight or whatever. But I started a YouTube channel 7 years ago or whatever, back when I also decided to go for the brick and mortar. That was a really key thing. I was doing the same at the beginning, but then you can only focus on one. You can't do both at the same time. There's no way. So the idea now is to go back, bless you, go back, and now I've had this excuse that my business failed, but not really because of my fault. Although it's a failure in some aspects, I don't know. I mean, whatever. I like to think that I have a good track record. So the next thing is to go 100% digital now, and that's it. And this is also maybe moving away from just teaching English, but helping teachers becoming the best teachers they can be. I've started helping kind of sell to trainees who are not getting the kind of feedback that they need. I helped one of my good friends the other day with her CELTA assignment. She just needed some of those basics. Sometimes the jargon gets a bit confusing, even for like English students. So I say, like, you don't need to know all the parts of a car to drive it. This is the same with a language. But the CELTA gets a bit jargony and all that. So I mean, when you're only seeing it for a short amount of time, it's too much information, right? So I'm able to kind of put these things into words and show and demonstrate and give teachers a lot more clarity and help them. Some of them might want to help with entrepreneurial skills. Then I can also help them, so I can coach them to do what I did. You can do this anywhere in the world. You could do what I did anywhere in the world, as long as you have good information, perseverance, and a commitment, and a good reason why to stay in this part of the world, to really sit it out and with all the challenges and obstacles. So that's kind of my transitioning. It's now to I teach online still. I have a kind of subscription based where I have them do courses every twice a week, and I do private classes, and occasionally I do some translations. And I'm looking to help more teachers as well develop their skills and maybe branch off as teacherpreneurs if they want to get their own students, just like I'm doing and seeing out here and wherever you want in the world, and also charging the right amount of money. Teachers, it's a very taboo thing, money with teachers. So I do believe I'm more of I'm dyslexic. I shouldn't even be an English teacher. But that's where the entrepreneurial side comes from. So I can help teachers if they want to go down that route, or if just they want a lot more clarity. English is not going away. Communication is more important. This is a great industry to be in. It's very competitive, but that's also because there's a lot of amateurs out there. A lot of people who haven't taken the time. They think, well, I speak English, I can teach English. But there's a lot you can easily charge. I charge anywhere between 3 to 5 times more than my competitors do, because I know the value that I bring to the classes.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, because sometimes, you can go onto websites like italki and you can do a class for €5, and it's just, you're not getting value for money, even though you think you are. compete with that, then they say, oh, this was €5. Well, you know, we have our qualifications, our years of experience, you know, we know what we're doing.
Yeah, it's you get what you pay for, is what they say.
So Ben, what's the name of your YouTube channel?
So I go down as Ben English and Inglés Superior. I've got about 50 videos on there. The production value is not very high because it is basic, but it's a process I love. I love making the videos. This is what I'm going to focus on now. This is the future. I'm going to continue to give out free information and help with my own style, probably more towards Spanish speakers to Latin American speakers, because I can understand them, I get where they're coming from, and I can help them as best as I can.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and fair play to you. I just have one more question that I guess I'm curious about as well. What's the appetite like in Peru and other Latin countries that you may be aware of to learn English? Is there a high appetite? Do they learn it for professional reasons? What's the educational system like? Things like that.
Yeah. I thought you were going to talk about the food for a second. I was going to say they have the food is great here. Honestly, it's abundant. The food is abundant here. So that's really good. And the demand is also abundant and the supply is pretty low. I mean, I just don't find as many people risking living 10,000 kilometers away from mummy and daddy, much as I miss them and I love them. This is the sacrifice that I make to be able to live the life that I do. I charge the prices that I know that I bring because it's not a mistake to work with me. You're going to get this and 10 times more. Yes, it's expensive, but that's what you get for something good. I'm happy with that. With the demand, I think the whole Latin America wants to learn English. This whole continent, there's massive potential here. There's massive demand. You could set up shop anywhere in a tiny little village and people would come and they would invest in their English. So no problems out here.
That's good.
Depends what kind of.
One other hot tip I guess I'd like to give you is when I looked at the website of Inglés Superior, you do an awful lot of towards kind of the social responsibility and you offered scholarships, and maybe you could just talk a little bit about what you did and the motivation behind that.
Yeah, I also think that basically my philosophy is to be the most ethical person in the room. Be the most ethical person that you can be and be a leader in that sense. So if you're starting a school, then be the most ethical school and people will recognize that and they'll love you. They'll start to love you for doing what you're doing and standing out. That's how I got dedicated, professional, great teachers. They went into my website and they saw that Ben was a real person who really cared about the world. I didn't use plastic cups for the coffee. The competition did. They went through 100 plastic cups every day, and I saw that as heartbreaking. So I said, well, no, we're just bringing normal cups. You got to wash them in the old-fashioned way. So I want to always trying to set myself apart by being that kind of leader, but being the best person, the most authentic person, most ethical person in the room, and then people will trust you and you'll always have business.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks for Ben, and thank you very much for your generosity with your time. Really appreciate it. And
no, equally so. Just remember, keep calm and speak English.
Very good.
Thanks, Ciaran. If anyone wants to contact me, benenglish.online. And if you're thinking about coming to South America, EnglishSuperior.com. I'm also on LinkedIn as Ben English Coach. And yeah, I'm helping both teachers. If you're thinking about any of this kind of move to South America, I don't know about Asia, I don't know about China, any of that, but I know about South America, I know about Peru. So yeah, definitely get in contact. And once again, thanks again, Ciaran, as well for the time and the honor.